Merry Christmas, everyone! Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And guys, it's nearly here. If you celebrate Christmas, you know what I'm talking about. It's nearly the big day. And probably even if you don't celebrate Christmas, you know what I'm talking about because you cannot escape it. But in honour of the time of year, I'm going to be doing a Christmas tag, and this is the Joy of Christmas tag that was created by Samantha at Novels and Nonsense. I don't think she uses her channel anymore, but I will link her video in the description box below if you want to go and check out the original. I'll also put the questions if you feel like doing this tag yourself. And to get into the festive spirit, I have some more Christmas clothes on. If you watched my video last week, you'd have seen my Christmas tree light dress. And this week is the turn of the Christmas jumper. So here he is. Oh, I'm a little bit too close. Sorry, waggling my boobs at you, but you'll see that he is a bit handsy. But this is my little, my little snowman jumper. I love him. I've decided to gender my jumper, but this is my favourite Christmas jumper that I've ever owned. It's super snuggly, I love it. If you've got a Christmas jumper, I'd love to know what the design is, so drop me a comment in the box below. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe, so you could hit that subscribe button while you're down there as well. But let's get on to the tag. The first question is anticipation. The Christmas excitement is real. What book releases are you most anticipating? And I'm not cool enough to know what's coming, and I'm really behind in both my booktube viewing and in listening to all my bookish podcasts, which is usually where I hear about the new and cool releases. But I think I'm quite excited about when Shuggie Bain, the Booker Prize winner by Douglas Stewart, comes out in paperback. I nearly did buy it in hardback, but I'm not a big fan of hardback books in general, so I think I'll probably just wait until the paperback is released, because I'm not a big fan of the reading experience with hardbacks. I find them a little bit clunky to hold, but also they're just really expensive and I don't have that money, so paperback all the way. And if you aren't aware of it, Shuggie Bain is the story of a young boy in 1980s Glasgow. So without even knowing any more of that, that really appealed to me, seeing as I live very near Glasgow. It's my city, and I love books that are set there. And 1980s Glasgow was a very different place to the city it is today. And Shuggie is living in one of the poorer areas. He's very close to his mother, but his mother has a lot of personal issues that impact her life and therefore the lives of Shuggie and his siblings. So I just think it sounds really interesting. Obviously it's won the Booker. It's just really great to see a Scottish book getting that level of recognition. Everyone I know who's read it has absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to get to it. And question number 2 is Christmas songs and carols. What book or author can you not help but sing its praises? I think I've mentioned quite a few times over my booktube career since March that I have really loved this book, and I've recently reviewed her new short story collection called To Be a Man, but I don't think I've ever actually reviewed Nicole Krauss's A History of Love on this channel, because it was a pre-booktube read, like pre-booktube. I think I read it in 2017, and so I've never really had the opportunity to talk about it until now. And handily it's sitting on my bookshelf beside me. So this actually isn't the copy I read a paperback copy, but after my rant about hardbacks, I actually went and bought a hardback copy of this book. So this is The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. And I wasn't sure what to expect of this book when I first got it. The title made me think it was a little bit, well, at the time I would have said chick litty, and also at the time I think I even said in my review on Goodreads that I would rather read the contents of my own bowel than read chick lit. I've matured a bit in my opinions around certain genres of books, but what made me trust this is, and I've mentioned him a few times, is my best friend is also the only other real book lover that I know in real life, and it was actually his copy that he'd given me, so I trust his opinion on books a lot, so I picked it up, and it didn't take me long to love this book. It had me from the start. I think I was crying by like page 10, and I just loved it the whole way through. So the story is told mainly through the eyes of a 14-year-old American girl and an 80-year-old Polish immigrant who is a Holocaust survivor. They don't know each other, but they have a connection through a book that was written by the man about a woman who he had loved prior to the war, and after whom the girl is named. The man has spent his life loving this woman, and the girl is, I think she's curious about how she came to be called what she is called. And so this is part mystery and part a coming of age story. It is gorgeously written, and it stayed with me all these years after I read it. So yeah, this is a book that I cannot help but sing its praises, and I really do need to reread it at some point, especially after finally picking up another one of her books and reading her short story collection To Be a Man, which I also absolutely loved. And I have Great House sitting on my book trolley. Neither this nor Great House have made it onto my challenge reads TBR for 2021, which there will be a video coming about after Christmas. But I think I might try and at least sneak a wee reread of this into it, because I've been talking about it a lot recently, and I think that's a sign that I need to revisit it. Question number 3 is Gingerbread Houses. Which book or series has wonderful world building? This is a tricky one for me to answer because I'm not a big series reader, and I don't read an awful lot of fantasy or sci-fi, you know, the genres that typically will have world building in them. But I think what comes to mind, I read it earlier this year, and then I've seen the incredible, I think it's BBC adaptation of it as well. So I think I'll have to go with Malorie Blackman's Noughts and Crosses. I'd heard a lot about this book over the years before I read it, and its concept is so simple, but it's genius. So basically this series, although I've only read the first book and I probably won't read the rest, just because when I picked it up I hadn't realised it was part of a series, and it is more YA than I would typically like. But this is set in a world where it examines what life would look like for people living in a world of black supremacy rather than white supremacy, like the world that we're all stuck in at the moment. And I've seen people shelve this as a dystopia, which I question, because really it mirrors so many of the experiences that people are living in our current world. So for me, I don't think dystopia is really the right way to describe this. And although I've said I wouldn't read more of the series because of its YA tag, it actually makes me really happy that this is a YA book, because it doesn't shy away from a very real topic and instead makes it relevant for younger readers who are hopefully at a stage in their lives where their opinions are still quite malleable. So the writing and the characters didn't really do an awful lot for me, but it was still an enjoyable read, and one that I think would be accessible to even reluctant readers. I think the only thing that I didn't enjoy about this book was Blackman's assumption that black people, so the Crosses, would be just as awful to white people, the Noughts, as white people are to black people in the society in which we live in. I understand why she did that, because really there wouldn't have been a story without it, but it just made me sad to think that that could be true. And in some ways the Crosses are worse to the Noughts than white people have been to black people in our current society, because in this world I think slavery has lasted a much longer time and segregation still exists, despite the fact that I think this is probably meant to be set in modern times, but I can understand why she made those choices, and actually for the purposes of this tag answer, that is what helps to create the world in which this story is set. So yeah, some good world building in this, and I think the TV adaptation really brings that to life when you see it on the screen. The adaptation makes this story a bit more adult, which is why I liked it so much, but I would definitely, as always, recommend you read the book before you watch the adaptation. And question number 4 is A Christmas Carol. Favourite classic or one you want to read? And I'll go with favourite classic. And I know I've talked about The Great Gatsby a couple of times on this channel already, so I'll pick something different and I'll go with a Bronte. I talked a lot about the Brontes when I did my Hey on Why book buying vlog, which I will link for you to check out if you're interested, because I bought a few Brontes there, and I think I said in that video that of the Brontes that I've read so far, Anne seems to be my favourite, and I really enjoyed Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And I think what I loved about this was the central female character, Helen. Although I didn't agree with some of her decisions particularly towards the end of the story, and her piety just made me want to slap her quite a lot of the time. The time in which it was written and set and the context of all that do play a part, and so I think she was very brave in the way that she chose to live her life. I think it's a really good book. It's got insights that are still relevant today, and it's got enough twists to keep you interested. I think I've seen Scott over a Scott and Nell's channel, Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, have a moan about the male character in this book, and I totally agree. I didn't like the fact that it was told from a male perspective, but I just think that character of Helen is what really is the strength of the book, because this is the story of how Helen, after having a brief period of happiness in her marriage, decides to actually leave her husband, earn her own money, and try and keep her son away from the influence of his father. And I think that was particularly brave at that time. Question number 5 is Christmas sweets. What book would you love to receive for Christmas? And well, Shuggie Bain, please. I mean, just any book. Any book, as long as I don't already own it, to be honest. I think I really want to read Evie Wyld's The Bass Rock. So yeah, I'd be quite happy if someone gave me that, because I think that sounds fascinating. Because it's about 3 women who are all joined by this rock that seems to shadow over a certain part of Scotland. So Scotland, yes, but also the 3 women, their stories are told centuries apart, and I think that sounds really good too. We have a woman called Sarah in the 1700s who is accused of being a witch. Then we have a woman called Ruth, and her story is told just after the Second World War, when she seems to have moved to be with a new husband, and she's getting to grips with that. And in comes Viv in modern times, who seems to be sorting through Ruth's things and putting her story together. So I love that interweaving of the different stories with something that links them together. There's a historical fiction aspect, it's set in Scotland. It just seems to have so many things that I love in it, and I've heard people say nothing but good things about it. So yeah, that would definitely be a lovely Christmas present. Santa, if you're listening. And question number 6 is Candles in the Window. What book gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling? One that recently did that was Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. I summed that up in my November wrap-up, so I'll again link that below for you to go and check out if you want to hear it. But I don't really read a lot of warm and fuzzy books. One that's coming to mind, and just this is because it has a doggy as a main character, and I love puppers, is Greyfriars Bobby by Eleanor Atkinson, another Scottish book, and I absolutely adore it. I actually didn't read this in childhood. I only read it a couple of years ago, and in many ways I'm quite glad I didn't try and read it as a child, because I just don't think I would have been able to. Maybe like an abridged version or something, but I think the language would have lost me a lot. Not so much the dialect, although even though I'm totally used to Scottish language, some of that was a bit tricky to navigate. But I just think it was too, when you compare the fact that I liked Point Horror and Babysitter's Club, I don't think I'd have really gelled with the language in Greyfriars Bobby. And you know, we have to talk about that wee sonsy doggy, because I don't think I've ever read a book where a character has attached itself so deeply to a reader without a single thought shared or word said. I could practically hear his little feet padding across the floor and the sound of his ears as he slapped when he shook. I totally fell in love with wee Bobby and his heartbreaking story. And it's a story that's so richly told that I can totally understand why it has endured all this time. You know, it's so simple, but it'll never get old. So despite what I've said about being glad I didn't try and read the original as a child, I've actually got a picture book version and I think an abridged version to share with my kids, because I don't want them to get into adulthood without really knowing the story. And it also means that when we're next in Edinburgh, we can go and visit the statue too. Question number 7 is Christmas trees and decorations. What are some of your favourite book covers? Let's have a look. What have we got here? I think I always pull this one out, but I just love the cover of the Essex Serpent. I love the colours, I love just how busy it is, and the fact that it's got leaves and flowers and things. Yeah, I really like this one. What else have we got? Oh yeah, I love this cover too. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. I love it. I think that pop of pink is really special. I love the clarity of the photo. And yeah, I just think that's really lovely. The fact that it's attached to an incredible book helps as well. Oh, now I can't get it back in the shelf. I'll just leave it down. I also have a really cool version of Pride and Prejudice. This is an Everyman edition, and look at that funky cover. It's like, looks like just spray paint on cardboard. Oh, sorry, my lights are really messing this up. I hadn't realised how shiny this was, but I think I picked this up not for the story but for the cover. This was a definite cover buy. I have read it and actually quite liked it as well, but yeah, this was a cover buy. I think that's really funky. What else have we got? Oh yeah, this is a book that I'll be reading in 21. If I can get it out. Oh, apart from my usual guys, I've left the sticker on it and it's totally ruining the cover. Oh, come on. It's my copy of The Miniaturist. But actually, this isn't the cover that I've seen on Goodreads, so I'll share one without a sticker with you on the screen. And also, I'll just share the next two on the screen as well, because I can't be bothered getting up and going to get them from the other room. But my copy of The Snow Child has a really gorgeous cover. And also, I really like the cover of Night Waking by Sarah Moss. And those are both on my TBR for next year. So there'll be some nice covers getting shared on my TBRs and wrap-ups for 2021 as well. And finally, question number 8 is Christmas joy. What are some of your favourite things about Christmas, and or some of your favourite Christmas memories? So I guess most people's favourite Christmas memories are from their childhoods, and I'm no different. We always had a real tree when I was growing up, and I kept that going until about maybe 5 years ago when I bought this artificial one, just because I wasn't sure about how ecologically like how good for the environment it was to buy a Christmas tree every year. But then there's a lot of plastic on this one, so I really need to make this last. So I think either way, Christmas trees are probably bad for the environment. But I always love the smell of a Christmas tree, and just it was so exciting putting the Christmas tree up when I was a kid, which is why I kind of give my kids free range over the tree to a certain extent. I think I talked about this in my last video, but yeah, I lost the battle for the white Christmas lights. We've gone for full-on multicolour, and then I just let them put the decorations on the tree, and then maybe afterwards I'll come in and maybe sort a few of them out, because my youngest I mean, he's only 3, he does like to put about 5 decorations on the one branch, so I will have a wee sort out. But my parents were pretty much the same. They just let me and my brother have at it and just do what we wanted with the Christmas tree. I loved getting up on Christmas morning and feeling my stocking before I looked in it like this. Oh, that's just the most exciting thing. I absolutely loved it. And even now when Santa, fills my kids' stockings, I love the feeling of them, like having all the stuff in them. I just think that's just so exciting. And I just loved Christmas TV when I was younger as well. We didn't have like a VCR until I was about 12, so we had to wait until Christmas for all the good films to come on the telly for us to watch them. So that was always really exciting. And of course the Top of the Pops special as well. I was a big Top of the Pops fan, so that was always a highlight of my Christmas day. Our Christmases were always pretty relaxed when I was a kid. Like I've said before, we lived in the south of England, but all of the rest of our family were up here in Scotland, so we didn't have anywhere to go or anyone to see on Christmas Day. So it would definitely just be quite a lazy day in the house. We didn't really get dressed up or anything. We just enjoyed time together as a family, opening presents and eating and watching telly. It was just so cozy and lovely. And since splitting up with my husband, I'm trying to reclaim a bit of that. I've spent the last kind of 10 years trying to fit his family's way of doing Christmas into mine, and then, you know, trying to do our own little Christmas in the house, but then also having to see his parents, my parents, and Christmas has just felt quite stressful, especially because I had to do the cooking for Christmas every kind of 3rd year, and I didn't really enjoy that. I was always quite proud of the results, but I wasn't a fan. So now I'm kind of off the hook a bit, because I just make some side dishes and take them down to my parents' house when I have Christmas dinner with them, and it's a little bit more relaxed. Having said that, last year was the first year that I did that, and I won't lie, last Christmas was horrible. I had only recently kicked him out of the house. I was in a lot of pain, and to be honest, I just wanted Christmas over and done with. I just, you know, I was dragging myself through every day this time last year, and I was not in the mood to celebrate. I remember sitting on my own on Christmas Eve, looking at the Christmas tree and just thinking, oh my god, we're nearly there, I've nearly made it, we're nearly done. And that's how I felt about it. And I think part of that was that we were always really big on Christmas as a couple and as a family with our children, to the point where he even proposed on Christmas Day. I found out I was pregnant with my middle son on Christmas morning, so it had a lot of things that held big significance and, you know, memories that I really didn't want to have to deal with this time last year. This year I'm a lot further on in my healing. He doesn't really feature a lot in my thoughts, and I'm definitely not letting him ruin my Christmas again, because I absolutely love Christmas. And now that I'm a mum, I say now, I've been a mum for 18 and a half years, but being a mum has made Christmas even more special for me. Like, I absolutely love doing all the little traditions with the kids, seeing their faces, the excitement. I just absolutely adore it. And we do the elf on the shelf, not to the extent that the Instagram huns do. We've been doing the Elf on the Shelf for years, before you got all your Poundland knockoffs and everything. And for me it's just a bit of fun. As you know, I'm well into Christmas jumpers, and just I really love getting into the time of year. So that is what the Christmas joy is for me. And that's it. That's the end of the tag. I hope you've enjoyed it. I would absolutely love to hear, particularly, what are your favourite Christmas traditions? What are your favourite Christmas memories? And I'm still on the hunt, because at some point in my life I would like to actually read a Christmas book at Christmas. If you have any recommendations for Christmas books that aren't romancy, then I would love to hear them. And until then, I think this must be the last video before Christmas hits. So if you are celebrating, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful time. I hope you get the chance to connect with loved ones, even if that's just over like Zoom or whatever. And I just hope you have a really chilled, fun, magical day that is filled with food and good telly and good times. And if you don't celebrate, I still hope you have a lovely 25th of December, whatever you're getting up to. And so next time I see you, we'll be wrapping up the year, and that's quite exciting as well. So until then, bye.